Hello. I did warn you. I did warn you that was going to happen. Hello and welcome to the first afternoon edition of Halo's podcast. We're here with Dr. Chris and Nurse Emily from Romsey Medical Practice. Today it's quite an exciting one. Simply because we get to talk to somebody that, number one, has started their own business, which, as everybody knows, I'm in total admiration about and for. But also, I get to ask loads of personal questions about what it's like to work with your spouse. So, exciting stuff. So, I'm not going to.
Exciting for you.
Might end in divorce later.
Yeah.
This may not be going out, actually.
Yeah.
Ideally, where I'd like to start is just to give everybody a tiny bit of background, but I do want to fast forward to all the meaty stuff. Is really you guys met in the NHS, at a local hospital, and I'll let you guys fill in some of the blanks in a second. But where the journey of starting Romsey Medical Practice started was actually the Romsey Medical Aesthetics. So there's a bit of a pause there. So I was going to say that's something else. Then I completely went over. Associates. That's what I was going to say. Romsey Medical Aesthetics. Still in Romsey. Yeah, I know. Not bad. I know you should start maybe a law firm. And primarily dealing with cosmetics, and then obviously the big diversification, which we'll get to in a minute, with regard to Romsey Medical Practice and the many services you now offer, as I know because I've just done the brochure. They're at the practice. So if I may be so bold as to start with, what was your key driver for leaving the NHS, and did you leave together at exactly the same time?
No. So I guess just a little bit of context. Chris was obviously an orthopaedic surgeon in the NHS. I was an A&E sister and nurse practitioner and used to refer to Chris in the NHS, which, as you said, how we met. There was a little bit of stalking involved. And actually it was on my behalf, believe it or not, I did chase Chris, which I don't do. And then you got old and things changed. But anyway, now I'm chasing other. No, I'm not. So basically we started first of all, with regards to the NHS, I think it's safe to say that it's a very challenging place to work now, and our support for everyone that continues to work in it, fair play, good on you. But certainly for us, I think it became more and more challenging. I think we weren't able to necessarily personally give the care that I wanted to. I think I felt I was constantly coming up against brick walls. You try and change things, and unfortunately it can't be changed. That's from my perspective.
There were other life circumstances.
There was life circumstances, went through bereavement, and so that is where I eventually left in 2018.
For me, I actually left in 2016 when I was becoming more and more senior in my orthopaedic training and realising I just felt like I was on a sort of a hamster wheel or a treadmill, and it was getting faster and faster and steeper and steeper. And I was looking at my immediate contemporaries that are ahead of me and thinking, I don't know if I want to do this until I'm 60 something. And I suppose that was where Romsey Medical Aesthetics came in. We met in 2012, and God bless her, our sister-in-law, Emily's brother's wife, Helen, hello if you're watching, did say to us, I think it's more that she wanted treatments herself. She said, you guys should go off and do Botox training because you'd be really good at it. So we were like, well, we'll give it a go. And we did some training and kind of started very, very small, treating friends, family, colleagues, working from home. We had a clinic room in our home. So Romsey Medical Aesthetics was born in 2013. It was kind of like initially a little bit of pocket money to save towards our wedding. We were engaged. We got married in 2015. So it was useful to sort of save towards the wedding. And then it kind of got a bit bigger and a bit bigger and a bit bigger. And it was you that took the brunt of it more than anything.
Yeah, I think when I was working full-time in the NHS, and as very much our business has grown through word of mouth, and I think that's always a really good way of growing a business. But I would constantly find at the end of maybe a 13-hour A&E shift, I could have 20 messages from people wanting appointments. And then I was having to filter through them. And I think one thing we noticed very quickly is people are quite reactive, and if they want an appointment, they want you to respond very quickly. And even though I'd be saying, I'm really sorry, I've just been in A&E, it kind of sometimes wasn't good enough. And I think as that accelerated, it got to a stage that something had to give. I wasn't able to do both jobs well. And I think in the end, with, like I said, bereavement and life circumstances, it certainly came to me that I said to Chris, I think it's either a case we say, right, let's throw everything in and just give it a really good go now, or we're going to have to say, actually, no more cosmetics and push ourselves back into the NHS.
Yeah. And did you? Well, did you? At what point did you? So I know you kind of said you decided there was that point that you were going to do it.
Yeah.
Did you jump together, or was there some security in one of you going into it full time?
Chris was working at the time for the DWP.
So after I left the NHS in 2016, our aesthetics business wasn't big enough to support both of us, and having had both full-time employment, making the jump and both suddenly being our own bosses and everything was relying on us was too much of a step. So I took a job with the Department of Work and Pensions, or a subsidiary of the Department of Work and Pensions. I did medical assessments for people applying for incapacity benefits, so employment support allowance and universal credit. The draw of it, or the attraction of it, it was Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, no weekends, no nights, office-based work for a relatively healthy salary, and it was reliable and repeatable, which then meant we could work outside of that on Romsey Medical Aesthetics. But it became very apparent very quickly that I don't do very well in Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, with reliable and repeatable. For me, monotony is kind of the enemy. There was no ability to have any free thought or entrepreneurial spirit. You just are nose to the grindstone, plod. And so I didn't last very long in that job. I did 3 years actually, so long enough. But all the while in that 3-year period, we were building Romsey Medical Aesthetics. I think the real push for us to go whole hog and leave our home practice clinic and open up our own place was Christmas 6 years ago. And I think we had one patient in the clinic room, one patient sitting on the stairs, one patient in the living room, one patient on our drive in her car, and we were like, what is happening? And in all honesty, as doctor and nurse,
we massively would frown at that now.
We pride ourselves on being really, really professional.
Yeah.
But at that time, we couldn't be professional. It was just, it had got too big too quickly. And so we then took on a commercial premises. And so we started in the centre of Romsey. Anybody that knows Romsey, it's a market town in Hampshire on the edge of the New Forest. So we took on this lovely old grade 2 listed 3-story premises with big rooms, massive windows. And that was the first iteration of Romsey Medical Aesthetics Clinic. And, we had a good couple of years there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. So,
and then how quickly did... Sorry, Emily, I talked over you then. I was just, when you've moved into the new place, how quickly did you work on your own, or did you bring somebody else in to help with like admin and stuff?
We took it on in September 2019.
Yeah.
Took it on in 2019, and then by December we were inundated, and again we were doing another Christmas, and it was like, what the hell is going on? And we were just too busy. So quickly.
We had one other person. So it was Emily and myself, and we had one other person. And again,
but then we didn't recruit them until December.
Oh, they came in December.
We recruited Lawrence started January.
So Lawrence was our first employee. If he's watching again, we miss you. Always welcome back. Lawrence was our first employee. He was kind of our practice manager, receptionist, accountant, chief tea, coffee maker, complaints handler, accountant. He did everything, which left Emily and I able then to deal with the actual provision of the services.
But he started, and then COVID hit.
Well, we also had another nurse join us, didn't we?
Yeah,
so we had another
Holly.
nurse join us. So Holly then became our third injector, because we realised that we needed to spend more time on the business as well as in the business. So we needed to step away from doing the procedures a little bit. So we brought in another injector to then try and help us work on the business at times.
And we took Lucy on, a skin therapist.
Then we had a skin therapist. So very quickly, from a team of 2, we became a team of 5.
Within about 6 months.
Yeah.
It was quick.
What was the biggest thing you learned from, because it's a dramatic change going from an employed position to then being your own bosses. What was the biggest thing? I mean, the good news is it sounded like you were in demand. So that's sometimes the most anxiety interesting part of it.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Probably
we might have different opinions.
Personally,
what was your
biggest challenge?
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was overnight. I suddenly had gone from being a nurse, and don't get me wrong, I was a sister, I was a practitioner.
You were a very senior nurse. Yeah.
I went from being this nurse, and then all of a sudden, I felt I was an accountant. I felt I was complaints management. I was HR. Not a nurse as an injector, but I was also a manager. And I suddenly found that I was all these different roles, and roles that as a nurse, I'd never gone through training and didn't know how to, I wasn't even sure payroll,
spreadsheet,
cash flow, absolutely everything. And I was like, wow, this is actually really tough. I'm no longer just a nurse. I feel I have to do everything. And I think that was probably a very overwhelming point. And I think that's probably for a lot of people going into business. These separate roles, suddenly when you're a director of a business, you have to really know how to step into absolutely everything. Because we didn't have, when I was in the NHS, I could contact HR, I could contact PALS, I had other colleagues alongside me, and all of a sudden it's you.
Yeah, my biggest thing is IT. I keep going to phone the IT help desk, and then I'm like, no, that's me.
No, that's you. Yeah,
that's me. Off and on.
It's absolutely everything.
For me, I can't even think of one challenge. There's so many challenges. One thing is nobody loves your baby as much as you do. That's one thing. So as good as Lawrence was, and our current staff, they're all brilliant. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with us. So unlike in the NHS, when, let's say, for instance, you went on annual leave, you put your out of office thing on, or you'd go home at the weekend, and you can almost forget about it until you go back in afterwards. With this, it's constant. It is always. Yeah. So you've got the emails, so that's one thing for sure. And alluding to what Emily said, all of my schooling, education, medical degree, everything was geared towards medicine. I've done no training in business management or business or economics or marketing. And that's obviously where you've come in. So what we've had to do is we've had to learn on the job. We've made a lot of mistakes. Fortunately, none of them catastrophic, but every time we do make a mistake, we learn from it. And the other thing is we're really open and honest when we know what we don't know. So we're not ignorant or arrogant enough to say we know everything, which is why we open ourselves up to professional support. So for instance, yourself, Halo Marketing, you've been integral to our development moving forward with regard to marketing and website and sort of social media management, etc. But also when we then did the new redevelopment, which we'll probably come on to in a second, we took on other professional help with how to set up CQC regulation. We took on clinic design specialists to help with, the things that we'll need to do for compliance.
Practice,
we are very willing to say when we don't know what we don't know. And willing to learn, I think, as well. I think that's really important with business, is be open to learning.
Do you think that, and I'll put this into context, when I first started the business, Halo, it was 2014, and I was sat in a stable on my dad's farm that had the world's worst Wi-Fi, and but at least it didn't leak much. But I found the solace of it was kind of I enjoyed that a little bit, and I don't know whether if I had my partner with me at the time working on it, whether I would have seen that as an advantage or disadvantage. I'm presuming you guys found it, because that integral, that first year, 18 months, where it's all quite exciting but a little bit scary as well, and you're a bit naive. Well, I was definitely a bit naive to it, because I was like, oh, what's corporation tax? Oh, that's pricey. Things like that, right? So how did you find that as a couple going through that initial year to 18 months?
That's basically, I just buried my head in the sand and let Emily deal with it all. And I'm going to be really honest, I'm not very good at any of it. So I'm sorry, Emily, what's the answer? Don't tell Chris.
Yeah. Well, I think very quickly, Chris and I established our roles in the business. So I think very quickly we knew that I had more management experience through being a sister, running an A&E department. It lent itself to more managerial side of things, which meant automatically I think I stepped more into that role, didn't I?
What do you want to say? Yes?
Well,
yes.
Who manages it, Chris?
What's my answer? See, I need to even ask what my answer is to that question. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I think there were some things that we did always, we were always very transparent with one another, but I think there were probably some things that I feel I just took on, just went on this path and was like, I just need to learn it myself, get on and learn it. And then if I need to share it with Chris, I will. But I think there's quite a lot of management stuff that you probably don't still know how to step into.
Fundamentally, we're getting into the nitty gritty now. Fundamentally, we're very, very different people. Very different people. And actually, it works brilliantly because I think by nature, and any of my friends, anyone that knows me from the past, and anyone who still knows me now, I'm very, I don't want to say flighty, but I'm quite spontaneous. I possibly am a little bit. What's the word I'm thinking of? Sometimes my thoughts get ahead of me, and everything needs to be done now. And I'm a little bit more, I don't say visionary, but possibly. Whereas Emily, and I often joke and say she's my anchor. That sounds a bad way to say it, but she is very grounded. And so what works really well is I might have these flighty ideas or this amazing thing, this entrepreneurial seizure comes through, and I go, wow, let's do that. And Emily's immediate reaction is no, because that's her nature. And what will then happen over time is she will, probably because I keep nagging about it and keep mentioning it, she eventually then says, all right, let's just talk about it. So normally things that I think about do end up coming to fruition at some point. It's just the timing is very much controlled by Emily. And I'd say I'm the ideas person, and she's the
finance. And
she's the one who puts it into practice, if
that's
you
the,
like.
The process person.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. So, and it works really well. And the other thing is I need variety. We said that when I worked at the CHDA, I need variety. So what I also do is I teach on Harley Street and for other sort of educational sort of faculties. So it means that I'm not always in practice. I'm sometimes there, I'm sometimes there. But always there is this stabilizing force in the business, which is Emily, whereas I'm a little bit all over the place. Very honest.
So when it comes to objectives, then as a couple and business owners, so we're going to move on from RMA became RMP, one was in medical practice, and there was the big move to the big new practice and the addition of GP services, gynecology, dermatology, physiotherapy, nutritional therapy, and everything like that. Were you immediately aligned on what the next 3 years were going to look like? Or did it take one of you take a bit more convincing than the other? Because it was a big step, wasn't it? Because that's when I kind of met you for the first time.
No, I think we both realised we needed to do it.
I think COVID made us realise a business isn't necessarily that safe. That was particularly at the time just doing the cosmetics. We were shut.
We needed more pillars on which we could, more foundational pillars on which we could base our business.
I think we felt very vulnerable with COVID. I think also, and not that I want to get too much into this, I think we realised after COVID how we knew it was an unregulated industry, the cosmetic side of things, but I think it became very apparent after COVID and
West.
during and I think that became quite scary for us, and I think also made us feel that our years of training and being doctor and nurse weren't necessarily being utilised in the best possible way.
We were fed up of being felt like we were glorified. Yeah. And no offence to them, we're not glorified beauticians. We are a doctor and a nurse, and the services that we're offering, we're trying to promote them as medical services. But unfortunately, in the current climate, I think it's kind of sometimes confused with glorified beauty treatments, like getting your hair done, getting your nails done, getting your eyebrows done. People think that Botox there's nothing dangerous about it. Well, it's a prescribed drug. Things can happen. Lots of stuff can go wrong. So we've done years of training of, Emily, she doesn't like to blow her own trumpet, but she was an advanced life support instructor. So, we want to be providing those things, but we also felt like we weren't using our medical skills. We felt disappointed that we were no longer.
We weren't proud.
Yeah, we weren't
proud of RMA, which actually we should have been, because it was a big, scary step, and actually it was a very good business. Like I said, word of mouth. It was successful, but we weren't proud of it.
Yeah.
So were you totally aligned on what RMP would become, or have you let it kind of evolve?
I think we were. I think we knew even when we started RMA, there was always this goal. And I think for both of us, we wanted this practice of medical professionals, whatever that looked like. And I think that was from day one what we were after. But it was scary to take that jump. And had COVID not happened, I don't know if we would be here now. But I think COVID certainly accelerated for us, like I said, the vulnerability of the business we were in, but also the then demand there was for a private practice.
Yeah, and again, we've got to say thank you to, we had some business coaching from Pam Underdown and Adam Houghton of Aesthetic Business Transformations. They were great. And I remember distinctly the conversation we had, and Adam said to us, he's from up in the Northeast, what is, I won't do the accent, although I can do it really well, but I don't want to ruin your podcast. No, what he said was, what is your 5-year or 10-year plan?
Yeah.
And we said, well, the 5-year or 10-year plan is to have a place where we've got like affiliated medical professionals. So we see the cosmetic side, but at the same time, we're talking to women in their 40s and 50s who are experiencing menopausal problems. So let's have someone that can deal with that. At the same time, we're the ones who are seeing their face and their skin all the time, and we take photos. And actually that little mole or that little lump looks a bit abnormal from the last time. Let's be nice if we had a dermatologist that we could refer you to. And that's where the GP side of things came in. So when we said to Pam and Adam that was our sort of 5 or 10-year plan, Adam distinctly said, why?
What are you waiting for?
Why? Literally, why 5 or 10 years? Why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? And we couldn't come up with an answer. What are we waiting for? Probably, and Emily would not mind me saying this, Emily is a bit of a control freak. And the idea of taking a risk or a step that means investing, I think Emily would rather have the money in her bank account and then invest it, as opposed to speculating to then accumulate afterwards. But that's when we took on all the extra professionals to help us move through and to get this up and running. But I think the goal and the idea of what this practice would be,
we were always aligned
similar.
With. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Have you had time to ever walk into Romsey Medical Practice as it is now, and how it looks and feels, and staff members are front and centre, and GPs and dermatologists walking past you in the corridor, and go, wow, look what we achieved?
No.
Have you had that?
There was one. It was probably a couple of months ago on a Tuesday, and I mean we're really proud of the practice because we want it to be very much a case of it's primarily for patients, obviously, but we also want it to be a really harmonious and friendly working environment. So, for instance, we all have lunch together, which in the NHS that would have never happened. So we actually shut the doors and we all have lunch together, and we sit and we have a debrief. And over the last few weeks, we've been doing a Great British Bake Off challenge. So every week, someone will do a different cake or whatever. Yeah. And it was one Tuesday, and we all finish at the same time. We locked the door at the same time, and I was at the end of the line while everyone was filing out, and I suddenly realized it's like one person went, second person went, third person went, fourth, and I was like, these people are relying on us for this is their employment, we're paying, we're supporting their families, and I was like, this is crazy that this is what it's become. But that was literally the only time, and I said it to you, and you were like, yeah, but we don't really look. I think it's always the same in it. Whenever you're in it, you don't see it.
Yeah.
We were only just saying to someone now, we've had a meeting earlier on, and it was someone who saw the practice 2 years ago when it was a building site, and then saw it today for the first time and said, you must be so proud of what you've achieved. And we were a bit like, we don't really notice it. It's kind of like you don't sit back and look and go, look how well we've done, because you're always striving to
the next thing.
Yeah. And you're a business owner, that there's always curveballs being thrown at you all the time. So you never really have a chance to sit and reflect and look at how well things have gone, because you're looking at the next challenge and the next problem or whatever it might be.
Yeah, you're spiraling, thinking about the worst case scenario that could happen next.
Always. Yeah. And that's another thing. You asked about what the biggest challenge was. I mean, you're not a one-man band. I know you've got other members of your team, but you set it up. It was your baby. Equally, any concerns, complaints, issues, criticism, it feels like a personal attack. It's not, but it's really hard to separate us from the business, because it's always been at us that has been the business. So that's something that, and the word resilience, I think, comes up quite a lot. Being able to bend but not break, and not take things too personally, but still learning from things and taking them seriously enough to make sure that they don't happen again if it is something that shouldn't have happened.
Has there been any particular dark moments? I don't want to take this to a different place, but it's somewhere where you've really become, I mean, I can probably tell you about 20 of mine in the last 10 years. Has there been any moments where you've just gone, is it all worth it?
If you ask us individually, we'd probably say yes. But the good thing is they've never aligned that they both happened in both of us at the same time. So I suppose that is quite a good thing. with yourself on your, I know Karen's your wife and she supports you wonderfully, but at the end of the day, if you're on your own, and it hits you. Whereas with us, I'm probably more likely to have a down sort of, oh my God, what are we doing? And Emily will be very pragmatic and say, no, this is what's happened, and she'll change my focus. But also then if Emily is the one that's having a wobble, fortunately I pick her up. So that it's almost like that Swiss cheese effect, isn't it? If they both lined up at the same time, goodness knows what would happen. But and that was another thing. When we were in the NHS, even though we worked together in the same hospital and we met in the hospital, we were slightly in separate departments. So Emily, if she'd had an interesting day or a good day or a bad day, she'd come home and tell me about what had happened in her day, and vice versa. Now, because we're here together all the time, all day, every day, if I've ever had a bad day, she's probably had a bad day as well, because it's the business. And so that can be quite difficult, not having external discussion points, potentially.
Yeah. Does it therefore make it difficult when you get home? I mean, are you good at kind of like, compartmentalizing it, I suppose, and just saying, no, we're away from the business now, let's not talk about it for a bit?
Yeah, I think since we've got a practice manager, then that's made life a lot easier for us, because we know it's being managed. Do you know what I mean? It's just someone in the background managing it. But I still think we probably, on our very short drive home, and if we walk home, on our walk home, I would say we probably chat about the business to that point and then walk in the door. The dogs are there. And I think then we try and put it to bed. But I would say we do probably debrief at the end of our days, because particularly if we've been busy all day, sometimes Chris and I don't get the chance to talk and see one another. Yeah. And there might be something that's been fed back to me that I've not had the chance to talk to Chris about, because one thing I would say, probably in my managing director role, Hannah feeds to me as opposed to you necessarily. And then it might be something that I need to go to Chris about, but sometimes there's things that I can just deal with.
Yeah.
But I would say at the end of the day, there's probably 15-20 minutes that we debrief. Is there anything we need to be doing? And then we try to just put it to bed and move on.
But also we've tried to build in as well, we're regulated by the Care Quality Commission, the CQC, and one of the things that we did as part of that regulation is that we've done it so that every morning we have a team brief, a team meeting as the whole team. Everyone who's in practice that day, we have a sit down, we have a cup of tea, and we say, right, what's coming up today? What happened yesterday? Is there any learning points? Is there anything outstanding? And I think that helps, because it means that we know that even if we don't talk about it that night, by the time we come back into work the next day, it's almost like that team meeting turns us from husband and wife into business owners. That is almost like the time when we switch our focus. You've been in
those meetings with us. You see that they're very structured, and just that gets everything out on the plate.
They're all minuted, so we've all got roles, we've all got responsibilities, we all know what's coming up. And I think that's, again, a really important thing that, asked us 7 years ago when we started that we would then be doing these team meetings every day, having briefings. We would never have considered it, ever. But it's really useful, and it's learning points, and it stops mistakes from happening. And it's patient safety as well is the biggest thing, obviously.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit earlier on, being a business owner is kind of all encompassing. For me, it's the thing you're thinking about in the shower. It's the thing you're thinking about before you go to sleep. All those kind of big things.
Yeah. What you get up to in the shower, Luke, I don't want to know about.
I'm thinking about colouring in things. But what do you do in your spare time outside of the practice to kind of de-stress? And because I'm a firm believer that you need time for yourself. What do you do What do you do as a couple, and what do you do separately?
Quantify as how much time, Luke, do you need to do other stuff outside of work? What would you quantify as a reasonable amount of time?
I'll let Emily answer what she does outside of work first. What do you do, darling?
I go to the gym a lot. The gym is my release massively.
You go early morning, don't you? Is that still the case?
Yeah. So 6 o'clock this morning. I very much.
I came with you.
Yeah. How many sets did you do?
2 sets.
At what weight?
And then I was on my phone for the rest of it. I went. That's okay, you see. Hi to James Kennedy, by the way, from Get Focused, who Emily and Luke and myself have trained with.
You just went for a chat, basically.
Yeah, went to catch up.
Bit of a catch up, yeah.
You need the gym, don't you?
I do. The gym for me is my mental. Well, I think it's for my health and well-being. I am a strong believer that I like to look after myself. There's no doubt about that. But I also do need it for my mental health. It's a release. It's my time. It's an hour of my time where I think about nothing else. Although James probably does get quite an earful from me because we do talk about business quite a lot. But it's time away. It's time for me. It's time to look after myself. And I have sort of tried to take up golf on the back of you.
So my spare time is I play golf once a month.
Oh, shut up.
Okay.
Shut up. Maybe 3-4 times a week, 5 hours a time.
I play golf, and I've been playing golf since I was 10. Played as a junior, played with my father, then went off to medical school at 18 and stopped playing golf for a little while, just every now and then, once or twice a year. And Emily actually said to me, and now she regrets it, when I turned 40, she was like, well, why don't you sort of go back to playing golf? So I did. And actually, I would say it is incredibly, and you were, I know we joke about it, but you actually, we start work at 12 o'clock on a Thursday just because we have a late night opening on a Thursday for people who are working and can't come in the weekdays. So as a result of us starting at 12, Thursday mornings are my free time. So I'll try and play some golf on a Thursday morning before work. And you even say, I think you should go to golf sometimes. Because
he's in a better frame of mind when he then comes into work.
But for me, playing golf, I'm not massively into mindfulness or practices of mindfulness, but my understanding of mindfulness is taking yourself out of your head and putting yourself in a process of something. And with golf, I just do that. My phone's not with me. I'm out in nature or whatever it is, breathing fresh air, concentrating on the task at hand and not really thinking about anything else. But the other thing as well that I find really important is I spend a lot of time with a diverse group of different people, men, women, older, younger, from different backgrounds. And in the course of a round of golf or half a round of golf, whether that be an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, just chatting and offloading, I feel like it's almost like a pressure cooker valve release. I'm kind of just decompressing a little bit. And what you do realize after a while, because some of the guys I play with have their own businesses, some of the guys I play with are doctors as well. All of the stuff that we're experiencing, which might seem like the worst thing in the world to us, it sounds like a catastrophe or whatever it might be. Everyone is experiencing something similar but different. You're not on your own. You're not abnormal for feeling the way you feel. So for me, having the ability to be around people, especially male company, because it's not often that women might go out for coffees or lunches or whatever. Men don't often do that necessarily. You might go to the pub, but then that's sort of revolving around drinking and stuff. This is something that I feel is genuinely healthy, and it gives me a chance to just chat. And she agrees that she's very happy for me to play golf more.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I never said that.
Well, I've got 2 final questions. One is to each of you individually. Is there anything you would change in your journey that there's a decision that's been made or anything that leaps out to you, go, oh, wouldn't have done that?
Oh, God. I'll let you answer first. I'm trying to think.
I'm a firm believer in everything. I don't want to say everything happens for a reason. That sounds really cliche. But everything that has happened to me has gotten me to this point now. And had everything that had happened not happened, I wouldn't be here. And my life is pretty all right. We all have our struggles. We all have our problems. But on broadly speaking, life is pretty all right. Would I like to have made less mistakes along the way? Yes. Would I like to have gotten to the correct answer a bit quicker? Absolutely. Would I have done this sooner? Maybe. And would I have done it in a different way? Maybe. But then equally, sometimes I think, what on earth are we doing? Why do they even do it at all? Why don't they not just stay employed in the NHS doing that? But I think that would have not been good or sustainable long term for me. So, yeah, there's some things I would change, but not overall, because I quite like where I am. What about you?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think, as you said, we've made mistakes along the way.
You'd have become a fitness coach.
Yeah, would I have done this?
Emily said she would have liked to have done a Les Mills body pump and body combat training course. So, I'm sure she'd have. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
At the end of the day, we're together. We're very happily married, and if we'd have done anything different, we wouldn't be together. And so, be very happy.
I think there's certainly been times that I've looked and gone, should one of us stayed in a secure job? If I'm honest, I think sometimes I look and think the security of when we go on holiday together, that's both of us going away, leaving a business. It is reduced income. You have to allow for the income you're losing plus the cost of a holiday, sickness.
But what I would say is part of the reason why we set up the new practice, obviously it's the pride in what we do, but we also wanted to kind of extricate ourselves from the business. So it wasn't fully reliant on Emily and I being present at all times. And our most recent holiday, we went away at the end of the summer. Hannah, our practice manager, managed it for us. We heard very little from the team while we were away, unless there was an emergency. Fortunately, there wasn't much going on. But when you look at the business bank account at the end of the week, revenue was generated. And so as a business owner, to see that your business is ticking along when you're actively not there was actually, that was possibly a moment, when you said, was there ever a moment you go look back and go, look at what we've achieved? That was a slight one, going, this is great that this is starting now, and hopefully it will continue. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is just the security.
What about I lied to you because I actually have two other questions. What about the next steps? Because you have created an entity in Romsey that that satisfies the market in Romsey and surrounding areas. Is there any plans to kind of take it a little bit broader?
I think
Miami, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think for us, a next step, a future step would be to franchise our business. However, we need to get our business a bit more in a box before we can do that. And I think it would be looking around at where you could lift a business like this and place it.
I think franchise is the wrong answer. Franchise would suggest that we're getting other people to buy into it and then run it. No, it's more that we can have so that we can almost, I think what we want to do is have like a blueprint, a Bible of how this place runs, so that then we can literally pick that up, put it somewhere else. Because what's being experienced in Romsey at the moment, and again, there's nothing against my NHS colleagues because they're doing a fantastic job in very, very difficult circumstances, but people's ability to get hold of NHS appointments and face-to-face appointments, etc., is not exclusive to Romsey. No. Unfortunately, it's happening across the country. So if we had the ability to go from one to the other, that would be great. But what we don't want to be is like one of the big boys, like one of the big private health companies. I think we've always said that if we were going to do it, we'd like to be like Mama's little bakery of healthcare, where like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. So, when people phone Romsey Medical Practice at the moment, they speak to the person on the front desk. They can almost point to, they'd be able to pick them out of a lineup. They know who they are. There is that personal
I'd say our doctors have become their doctor now. Back in the day, you always had GP. That is how our patients now have it. They've got to know our GP, and that GP is their GP. And that's kind of, I think if we were to do it anywhere else, we'd want that same relationship. We don't want it to just be any old person working there.
Yeah, we'd like to expand, but we want the core ethos of the practice to be the same.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So finally, so when I do a lot of video content with you, and with you both, and I've often joked.
Who's better? Just out of interest, just a quick question.
I refuse to answer that question.
You can actually upload them onto Instagram because they're less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of my point, really. You're both one-take wonders, which is a very, very rare thing in what we do. Where do you think the ability for both of you to be so articulate on video has come from? Is it your NHS background or just luck?
I think it's been practice. I don't think we were at the beginning, Luke. I think it's taken time.
All right.
I do. I'm not sure.
I think Emily's doing herself a disservice there. In medicine and in A&E especially, and trauma and orthopedics where I was, you do have to think on the spot. Things come out of the blue. You have to do things very quickly. You have to prioritize.
You react.
You have to triage. You have to react. And I think the ability to think quickly, coherently, was ingrained in us in our training in NHS background, in trauma background, in emergency background. I think a lot of our ability to talk like this comes from a really real grounded foundational knowledge base. So we are not going to sit here and just blow smoke up someone's arse or try and faff through something. We will talk very, very articulately about the things we know, but equally, if we don't know something, we'll be really honest and be like, I think honesty and transparency is really crucial. If I got asked to talk about something, and the same with you, that I really had very little knowledge of, you might see a very, very different person. Also, I think the video content that we do together, a lot of the stuff is great, that sort of Q&A stuff. So it's just like this, just chatting. And I think our nature comes across in those videos, and that's the bit that gets the most engagement from us, from our, you know, our followers, is that kind of authenticity, almost like they know who we are before they even come and meet us. And I think that's really, really useful. So yeah, just being ourselves is really important, and not trying to, you know, Billy bullshit or anything. Sorry for swearing. I don't know if that's allowed. You know, just being honest, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, it's a special formula, and you just, you know, you identify the fact that it links in so well with what the practice is, and what you just said there about people feel like they know you before they've even walked through the door. That's ideal. That kind of sums up what Romsey medical practice is. The professionalism, you know, friendliness, warmth that comes through. So, and hopefully it's come through in this podcast. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully it hasn't been too arduous.
It's quite nice having that kind of time to, like, you know, you asking us these questions means we've had to reflect on things that we've done, and I don't think we would have done that necessarily had you not asked us. So thank you very much for having us on.
Oh, that's no problem at all. It's and what I tend to say to everybody is, anything I've discovered while doing this is, I always say, well, let's do a follow-up, because you then realize that, you know, even a year down the line, all these journeys that business owners are going on, they're all, even though there's ups and downs and lefts and rights and everything, there's always something new. And even point to my business, it's done a bit of a 180 since last January, and we're reflecting on that at the moment. So yeah, we'll keep in touch on the podcasts, because obviously I'm seeing you in like 2 weeks time anyway.
Christmas jumper day.
Don't forget your Christmas jumper. I know you bought a new one.
I know. I thought I'd show you. I've got many. I had to send back my Curses one.
Me your main one from Next, Luke.
That's the one. It's fantastic.
One that's coming in next week.
Yeah, I'm actually having a bit of professional photography done with me wearing my Christmas jumper. That I'm so proud of it. But yeah, I'll be wearing it when I see you next. No problem. But thank you very much again. I really appreciate it. And both of you take care of yourself. Thank you for being so candid.
See you later. Bye.